Hello and welcome to InvestBlade TV with Kenny. And today I want to talk about your net worth. What is your net worth? Net worth is the difference between your assets and your liability. Not many people pay attention to their net worth, and this is not the best because depending on how old you are, whether you're in your 20s, you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, as the years go on, you want to be sure of how much you're worth, how much your family is worth, how much you are worth as an individual. So, how do you calculate your net worth? Your net worth is the difference between your assets and your liabilities. So, let's assume you have a house, and let's say the house is worth uh, 1 million naira or maybe 15 million naira. That's something. But before you say your house is worth 15 million naira, it's very important that you get asset valuers to come and do an assessment of that house. It's very, very important because you may think your house is worth 15 million naira while an asset valuer may say your house is actually worth 30 million naira. And this helps you to put things in proper perspective so that you are not undermining yourself or you're not overrating yourself, especially the worth of your house. So that's the first thing. Your house is worth X amount. Number two, your investments have brought in X amount of money, or your investment portfolio is worth X amount of money. If you have some of these apps, one of the things you will find is that they would say how much is your holding, your total holding in a particular share, maybe give or take $100 or $1,000. That's something that you have. Is that okay? As an asset, something that is an asset is something that increases your value as an individual. All right, so that's that. Another thing that could be part of your assets will be intellectual property that you own. Maybe you've written a book, you've made some music, or you have a piece of a content that can generate value for you. That's very, very important. So that's some of the things that could be part of your assets. And somebody say, oh, is my car an asset? Yes and no. Yes, if you own an antique, let's assume you own one of these early Ford racing cars. I've seen investors that pride themselves in that and they can really calculate how much they bought the car. That's a supercar, by the way. And now how much that car is worth. But for most people, their cars will not be an asset. Another way your car can be an asset is if it has historical value. For example, if your car was originally used by the president of Nigeria in 1960, or this was the car that the Queen Elizabeth rode in, all those things can have sentimental value, and then you can actually add that to part of your assets. All right, but a normal car for day-to-day life will not be an asset. And one of the best definitions I've found about assets and liability was by Rich Dad Robert Kiyosaki, that said that asset is something that puts money in your pocket, while liability is something that takes away money out of your pocket. Now, in that regard, he went on to say that your house is not an asset if it doesn't put money in your pocket. Now that's very interesting because of two reasons. For example, your house was worth X amount when you built the house or bought the house, depending on how you did it. Now, the house will be suffering depreciation. So, in the light of depreciation over the years, the value of the house may have come down. That's why architects, builders have some things that they ask you to do regularly to your house so that your house can appreciate in value and things like that. So, liabilities are things that take money out of your pocket, and you want to minimize those very much. So, what are examples of liabilities? A liability could be how much you are owing. Are you owing a bank? Are you owing friends? Or are you in a kind of debt servicing scheme? For example, if you school in a country where you could take a loan to go to university, that's a debt to your account. Some people also get into debt. They use debit card, credit card to buy a phone, buy a device. those are liabilities that you're piling up on yourself, and you want to be very careful that that's not too much. Now, how can you boost your net worth as a person? First of all, is to clear every debt that you own, or every debt that's to your name. That's very, very important, because once you're in debt, it's going to be difficult for you to build wealth over that. All right, because the amount of money you are putting to clear out your debt is something you could otherwise have used to build your net worth. Very, very important. So, clear out your debt. Second thing will be to pay out all your mortgages. For example, you are paying maybe 3,500 on your home every month. The earlier you pay that out, the better. We've seen instances where a mortgage that was supposed to be paid for 40 years, 30 years, you complete it in 25 years. There's an accrual effect. Now, depending on who you speak to, they may say there's no advantage in paying out your mortgage early, but the numbers are different depending on how you calculate it. I'll vote for paying your debt, your mortgage early, and that helps you to be able to add whatever you've saved from that to your assets. Is that okay? All right. Another way to boost your net worth will be to control your expenses. Leave several steps below your means. Very, very important. If you can't earn $100 and spend $100, that will be somebody that will not be worth much to themselves, to their loved ones, and to people all around them. So you want to check, how much am I making? How much am I spending? And you want to trim that down very well. I remember seeing, was it a meme or an image of a young man putting up a placard to say, don't forget to cancel your trial subscription. So maybe you try out Netflix for 30 days, try out Amazon Prime for 14 days, and it's free until that last day. So you want to remember to cancel when it's not something that's very essential for your life. Very, very important. So you're making sure that I'm reducing everything that can take money away from my pocket, but I'm increasing everything that can bring money into my pocket. Very, very important. Now, what else can you do? For example, you could create a course. Maybe you're an expert at something, you cook very well, or you could teach very well. Create something, upload it, and anytime anyone downloads it, that's money coming to you. Very, very important. Because if you don't pay attention to things like this, it's going to put you in a place where you are not worth much financially, and you are not able to be credit worthy. In some instances, somebody says, oh, what's my credit rating? They say, well, the more you borrow from the credit system, the more your credit rating. I'll say yes, I'll say no. You can't afford to borrow money to spend on liability. If you have to take a credit card loan in order to build a house and in order to do something phenomenal, then that's fine. But taking credit card to buy a new phone and things like that is not going to help you at all. Okay, so talking about reducing your liability, buy a car that can last a lifetime. If you check whether Millionaire Next Door or some of the frugal people around you, you'll discover that wealthy people really don't change their cars regularly. Is that okay? You want to buy a very reliable brand of car, depending on what the data says where you are. It could be a BYD, it could be a Toyota, depending on what it is. It could be a Nissan, for crying out loud. Saves you fuel, saves you money, and it's also presentable, good to look at, and it does the work. All right. When you do that, you are not caught up in the downward spiral of having to pay for so long over a vehicle because you tried to buy a brand new vehicle. Is that okay? Some people even say it's better to lease than to buy. Depending on whatever you want to do, make sure that your net worth is always before your eyes. You want to make sure you're worth your weight in gold by doing everything to legitimately increase the assets that you own and then reduce the liability. Very, very important. So here's wishing you the best as you go on to increase your net worth. God bless you and see you in the next episode. Thank you.